This is CBC Vancouver News.
Bracing for rain and snow. Another atmospheric river is hitting this province. And warnings to stay out. Trails closed after 2 bear attacks in Squamish. Also,
Number 3, Kevin Viexa.
Retiring a Canuck. Fan favorite Viexa hits Vancouver ice one last time. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Across the south coast, people are bracing for another atmospheric river. Environment Canada has issued a rainfall warning for much of Metro Vancouver, with warnings this kind of heavy downpour can cause flash floods and localized flooding. Special weather statements are also in effect tonight for the Fraser Valley, the Sunshine Coast, and parts of Vancouver Island. 20 to 30 millimeters of rain predicted to fall tonight as a storm system moves in, bringing some cooler temperatures. Snow has already begun to fall in places like Prince George, Whistler, and Kamloops, and the province says it is prepared.
In terms of preparations, for example, there are over 4 million sandbags that are ready to be deployed if necessary. There's sandbagging machines in locations around the province. There's more than 10 kilometers of Tiger dams and the Gabions, and already assets have been deployed to some of those areas where we know there is a potential for flooding.
In Surrey, meanwhile, an extreme weather alert has been activated. 5 emergency weather shelter locations will be open with mats for 76 people to get out of the rain and cold. Well, the atmospheric river currently passing over the south coast is the same kind of system that caused devastating flooding in our province around the same time last year. But as senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe explains, these storm systems are a common phenomenon on this coast.
Why are we hearing so much about atmospheric rivers right now? Thing is, we've always had them here on the west coast. These narrow bands of moisture act like a conveyor belt or a fire hose, transporting huge amounts of moisture from the subtropics to our neck of the woods. They're really common in the fall and winter on the west coast of North America. BC gets about 10 to 12 of these events a season. In fact, it's how we get 20 to 25% of our annual rainfall. We need atmospheric rivers to replenish our water supply and end droughts. But there's a scale. Check this out. Researchers in California are working on this 1 to 5 scale. Cat 1 and 2 are beneficial. Cat 3 to 5 means there's concern for flooding and washouts. Last year's historic flooding on BC's Sumas Prairie was a 4 or 5 on that scale. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says these big atmospheric rivers will become more frequent and more intense with climate change. So why are we just hearing about them now? Well, in my opinion, as a scientist, I think the public science literacy is going up as we experience more extreme weather. Before, we might have just said heavy rain event, but now you want to know the why behind it. And I think it helps putting a name to something that can be so destructive.
The district of Squamish has closed trails in a popular recreation area near its downtown after 2 separate bear attacks were reported there. A statement said the trail network at the Squamish estuary would be closed until further notice to ensure public safety. This morning, there were 2 separate surprise attacks involving a sow with a cub. Barricades and signs have been set up at all entrances to prevent people from entering, and the district is asking people to respect the closure for their own safety. Vancouver police are investigating the city's 5th homicide of the year after a man was fatally stabbed last night. Police say they were called to Renfrew and Gravely after a man was attacked. The 37-year-old victim was taken to hospital where he later died. No one has been arrested, but police say a man in dark clothing was seen running north on Renfrew Street. As for a motive,
we don't know much about the victim. We don't know why somebody would have wanted to attack him. We don't know if this was random and unprovoked or if this was targeted.
Police are asking anyone who is driving in the area around 9:45 and has dash cam footage to share it. A man and a woman have been sentenced to 12 years probation for a mischief incident involving racist language directed at the victims. Astrid Maria Sekrev and Eric Bethune were sentenced in Richmond today for their part in the incident, which saw the pair spill or throw coffee and direct racist language towards a manager at Rocanini Coffee Roasters in Steveston in March 2021. The pair pled guilty in October. The judge in today's sentencing called their language, quote, abhorrent, and noted the confrontation escalated from the manager enforcing COVID-19 rules, which were in place at the time. Well, gas prices in Metro Vancouver saw a noticeable drop today, going from $1.98 per litre yesterday to $1.85 today. Over the past week, gas prices have jumped past $2 per litre, and while British Columbians are happy to save money, many are frustrated with the fluctuations.
It's unbelievable how much money I spend on gas and how it affects my family, how it affects our whole finances. It's just a joke. And when the gas comes down this small, like this much, it doesn't make that much difference. They should bring it down to where it should be.
They go up and down. You don't know. You have to watch for the special every day.
It seems like it goes up like way over $2 and then way down, like, you know, jumps of 30 cents. Like it just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
The dip in local gas prices still leaves the province with some of Canada's most expensive gas, compared to $1.55 in Calgary and $1.69 in Toronto. And as we told you yesterday, the federal government says it wants to bring 500,000 immigrants into Canada a year, starting in 2025. The push comes amid a looming labour shortage. So what can newcomers do to connect with jobs? Yasmin Gandin went to a fair in downtown Vancouver to find out.
From a resume clinic to help with interview skills, the fair is meant to help newcomers find jobs. Some say having a work permit is one of the biggest challenges.
Trying to get different positions, not just the beginner or middle term. If they have the skills and the education to get better jobs, they can be able to do that.
And employers are ready to help. Nelson Dion is originally from the Philippines, but has been in Canada for over 20 years. He owns a cleaning company.
For me, this is my motto is if I get a chance to help the community, it's good. Offering them jobs and then help feed their families, right?
The pandemic has been a particular challenge.
Well, actually, it has been a little bit difficult after I graduated from a PDD, a 2-year PDD in business administration, because of the pandemic and also because times are getting longer for the postgraduate working permit. So by now, I'm waiting for more than 6 months and I still don't have mine. And then it's getting difficult for me to get a job because of that reason as well.
Employment experts say it is important to ensure everyone has equal opportunity to get skill-based employment, regardless of where they are trained.
There are times where people will find whatever job is immediately available. However, what we are looking at doing is, as employers, we're an employer ourselves, Mosaic is an employer, but as employers, we need to look at what our hiring practices are, what our policies are that might unintentionally exclude newcomers for consideration for these skilled positions that we're looking to fill.
That push to fill jobs is now rising as Ottawa plans to welcome 500,000 immigrants per year starting in 2025. Yasmin Gandin, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Vancouver's status on the global culinary map is getting a boost after the Michelin Guide's first ever visit to the city last week. And while food critics say it's great to see local chefs and restaurants getting their due, some wonder why Michelin's review process is so secretive. Josh Grant is looking at the question of how much money was spent to convince Michelin to come to town.
It really captured what we do best here.
Food critic Alexandra Gill says the Michelin Guide's 60 selections for Vancouver are on brand. Asian flavors, casual dining, farm-to-table cooking, and the city's diversity all shone through. But while the guide is considered an international standard, it's also something of a mystery for local chefs, critics, and diners, because the rating system is a closely guarded secret, centered on its famously anonymous reviews.
The anonymity of the inspectors is its greatest strength. You know, it's what gives it legitimacy and authority, because nobody knows who they are. Nobody can buy their votes.
At the same time, though, Gill questions whether all restaurants are truly considered equal, given the guide's global perspective and fine dining roots.
Some of it seems disingenuous. I mean, I don't know if in France service and decor is no longer considered. You know, maybe here in North America the standards are different.
The Michelin Guide was created in France over 100 years ago. As it looks to expand outside Europe, Gill says it's having a hard time shaking the perception that its awards are reserved for exclusive and expensive fine dining spots. She adds it didn't come to Vancouver for free, but rather was paid a large sum by Destination Vancouver for a 5-year commitment. Destination Vancouver declined an on-camera interview, but writes that it worked with Michelin on marketing and promotional efforts only, and that contract is confidential. Sentiments echoed by Michelin North America, who said the money would help cover costs, including communication and marketing campaigns.
I think it was one of the biggest celebrations in culinary history we've had in the city.
This TV cooking personality says having Michelin come to Vancouver is a big deal, but that the much coveted stars can be a double-edged sword.
In talking directly to chefs, it's like, if I don't get my star, it's going to look so bad because people either expect me to get it, or my customers are going to expect me to get it, or customers are going to be like, oh, that didn't even get a 1 Michelin star.
Pak says chefs in other countries like Japan and France have even given back their Michelin awards, saying they didn't want to deal with all of the pressure and maintain the high expectations that come with them.
It's one of the few awards where you can lose it. You know, in no other award system can you really lose your star.
Despite the secrecy and the strain, both Gill and Pak say the Michelin Guide is a worthy investment and a gold standard for chefs to strive for, as long as they can handle the heat. Josh Grant, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, he's a fan favorite on and off the ice, and now Kevin Viexa is back with the Vancouver Canucks for one night only. The longtime defenseman threw on a jersey and joined today's morning skate.
Have fun, boys. I'm ready. I'm warmed up.
Viexa spent 12 seasons in the NHL and played close to 600 games with the team before moving to Anaheim. Viexa was joined by his son today as he officially signed back onto the roster.
Get on your feet and welcome back the pride of Grimsby, Ontario, number 3, Kevin Viexa.
The pre-game ceremony took place tonight at Rogers Arena when the Canucks hosted Anaheim. It featured another Canuck legend, Daniel Sedin, who gifted Viexa a piece of the very stanchion that bounced the puck towards him when he scored the series-clinching goal in 2011.
Patterson carries the center, nice pass in the middle. Here's Kuzmenko again, hat trick!
And the team sure fed off the energy in the arena tonight, pulling off an 8-5 win against the Ducks with a hat trick by Andrei Kuzmenko and 2 goals from Bo Horvat. Canadian football's biggest prize is coming back to this province. Today, the CFL announced BC will host the Grey Cup next year at BC Place. This will be the 17th time the championship is played in the league's westernmost market. Vancouver last hosted in 2014 when the Calgary Stampeders beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The BC Lions, meanwhile, are set to host the Stampeders in this year's Western semifinals on Sunday.
There is no country better placed than Canada to get through the coming global slowdown.
Coming up after the break, the federal government says Canada could enter a recession next year, what the government is promising to help people through. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. An Edmonton martial arts studio is teaming up with the Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society to empower Indigenous women and girls with self-defense education. Take a look.
Way, very nice. Shrug that shoulder, nice, very good. I'll take that.
If I'm here and I see that hand go up, I don't want to get far. What I want to do is I want to get in. If I can't get in, I want to reach to that shoulder, controlling that inside position.
I want to feel more safe in my community when I'm walking home late at night. You know, I take the bus, I live alone. I was attacked in 2019. I was stabbed. A man with mental health issues who attacked me outside of my apartment in Calgary. So I would say I don't feel very safe, I guess.
Indigenous women in Canada are 3 times more likely than their non-Indigenous counterparts to experience violence. We want Indigenous women and that LGBTQ2S+ community who's already targeted without choice of choosing who they are to come and get support so that they can feel physically safe defending themselves and be reminded that there's a community that supports them.
Most of my friends get bullied and I wanted to help them. I just think it's really important for Indigenous women to feel safe.
I think martial arts it's for everybody, but I definitely wanted to use this program as kind of a gateway for that community to really find themselves within martial arts.
One thing we wanted to do is starting with a smudge, and it kind of links us together as a community just within who's attending the class. We come in cleansed and ready to be vulnerable with each other and share with each other and learn that we're here to support each other. We really want to make sure that we are being culturally attuned because this is a program being offered to Indigenous women, and it makes sense that's being led by Indigenous principles and informed by Indigenous elders and peoples.
The whole concept is just bringing our knee up. Once I bring my knee up, all I have to do is push my hip forward. Ball of the foot does the rest of the work. Just do that a couple times. Back leg, just bring it forward, knee up.
If someone were to come at me, then I'm ready to move, you know? He showed us how the footwork like a real boxer, you know? I feel really good about it. I just feel more confident that I'm a little more prepared.
A retired senator from Saskatchewan wants Canadian universities to strip Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond of any honorary doctorates. As many as a dozen Canadian institutions, including the University of Regina, have awarded honorary degrees to Turpel-Lafond. She's a prominent academic and former Saskatchewan judge, and for years she claimed to be a Treaty Indian of Cree ancestry. But a recent CBC investigation discovered those claims were inconsistent with publicly available records. The CBC's Jeff Leo has more on the consequences some Indigenous women are calling for.
Yesterday, a group of Indigenous women, mostly academics from across Canada, released a public statement in reaction to CBC's investigation of Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond. They say Turpel-Lafond's career has been accelerated by her claim to Indigenous ancestry. They say she's unjustly benefited and taken away opportunities from authentic Indigenous women. One of those benefits they point to is a raft of honorary doctorates she's received from universities right across Canada. They're calling on those institutions to revoke those honors. Lillian Dick is the first woman of Indigenous ancestry to have been appointed to the Senate, and she's speaking for the group.
An honorary degree is something that they can take away. They can have the committee have a look at it and make a decision. And frankly, I think the case is so crystal clear that if they don't revoke her honorary degrees, I think they'd be in a lot of trouble.
Now CBC is reaching out to a dozen universities across Canada. So far, we've heard back from just one of them, the University of Regina. It says it takes this matter very seriously and it's going to start gathering facts. The university points out that it does have a process for revoking degrees. Now, this call by the Women's Collective is just one of a series of new developments in the story about Turpel-Lafond. Earlier today, we published another story about a series of puzzling inconsistencies in her academic work. So for one example, Turpel-Lafond's CV says that she wrote a book on Indigenous custom adoption. So we went looking for that book, but couldn't find a copy. We reached out to the person she says was her co-author, but he told us that book didn't ring a bell for him either. That's just one of a series of new inconsistencies CBC has uncovered, and you can read about it in our web story on cbc.ca/sask. Jeff Leo, CBC News, Regina.
At a time when so many Canadians are struggling with bills and rising costs, there's a new warning of further trouble. The federal government says Canada could enter a recession next year, but it says it has a plan to help see people through. David Cochran reports.
A pleasant smile in the face of an economic slowdown and a hopeful plan to confront a possible recession.
There is no country better placed than Canada to get through the coming global slowdown.
That may be one more thing that's tough for Canadians to buy. But while households struggle with rising costs of everything from groceries to gas, the Canadian government is raking in cash. Deficit projections down by billions. There's even a surplus projected for 2027, with billions left over for new spending.
We're delivering new measures to enhance the social safety net that is there to support all Canadians.
Support through the permanent elimination of interest on federal student loans, a revamped tax credit for low-income workers, and a promise to negotiate or legislate a reduction in credit card fees. That's on top of the already announced boost to the GST rebate, housing benefits, and dental care. The NDP supports Freeland, but wanted more.
Specifically, the cost of energy going up, no relief for Canadians dealing with a future of a cold winter.
Conservatives, as expected, are opposed.
Well, the cost of government is driving up the cost of living. $500 billion of inflationary deficits.
Inflation is top of mind, but Freeland is trying to meet a new challenge from south of the border, where Joe Biden's plan for big green economy tax cuts threatens to steal jobs and investment from Canada.
We will continue to make it easier for businesses to invest.
To specifically counter Biden, there's tax credits to invest in clean tech and clean hydrogen, credits that are more lucrative if a company pays higher wages. Everything in this plan comes with the caveat that things can get a lot worse. Right now, Freeland is betting the Canadian economy comes through this slowdown relatively well off, but she admits a recession is quite possible, with unemployment potentially hitting 7% by the end of next year. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Here is a live shot of a very rainy Georgia street. Johanna will have your full forecast next.
It's just after 9 a.m. on a Tuesday inside the front foyer of Grandview Elementary. Parents and grandparents pass babies around, sip tea and coffee, and chat.
Well, we all sit and laugh and have fun. It's just nice to come here and have snacks and coffee and company.
It looks like just an informal get-together, but it's much more than that. Donna Ma helped start Tuesday Tea a few years ago as a way to engage parents and grandparents with the school. Especially needed, she says, in this neighborhood where many face challenges.
It's about parental support because these ladies, they have had some really hard lives or they're having a hard time. So we're all kind of super supportive with each other. It's like a little counseling pit. So it kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas in our conversations.
Relationships are being built here between each other.
It's helped me to come and enjoy other people and socialize.
I love it. It's helped me connect with other family members in the community and my elders.
And between communities.
I really feel like we're bringing that sense of culture into the school, which is very cool for First Nations people because a long time ago we weren't allowed to gather together. So for us to gather in this space, in places, institutions like this, it's very empowering.
And beyond that, it's also about what it means for the kids.
The focus of a school is on student learning, and that's sort of the foundation of everything we do, but we realize that parent engagement and parent involvement is a huge part of that process.
The school has other plans in the works to keep the connections growing. It wants to start another program where parents come in and read to the kids. But the work it's already doing seems to be making a difference.
And even just spending time to look at the art that my kid does, you know, just spending the little bit extra time in the school is making a difference.
I know a lot of people have had issues with schooling and, you know, getting there and wanting to be there. And seeing your parents here, it makes it kind of like, oh, this is a good place to be. It's not threatening. It's really nice.
Engaging families to help students succeed. It can start with something as simple as sharing tea. Stephanie Mercier, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Celebrate Chinese Canadian music and entertainment at the Jade Music Festival, November 28th to December 3rd. View the schedule at jmfa.ca. And on December 7th, join Anita Bath and a panel of Indigenous business leaders at the Surrey Board of Trade's online Entrepreneur Showcase. Register for the free discussion today at businessinsurrey.com.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
And senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now for a look at the weather. A pretty wet one out there today, and is it going to continue?
We're about halfway through, Michelle, so it's going to continue, get a little windier and get a little warmer as well, but yeah, we are about halfway through this latest river. On the satellite and radar, we've basically been seeing that fire hose point the end at the south coast since mid-morning for Metro Vancouver. We still have a long ways to go. The source is actually over towards the western Pacific waters. This is the plume that's hitting the south coast. It will eventually sink south tomorrow evening. So we very much still have the warnings in place for Metro Vancouver. That is a rainfall warning. We also have a special weather statement for the winds right across the south coast. Snowfall is a big story again through the overnight and into tomorrow morning before we get those snow levels rising. So we will expect to see on all mountain highways 10 to 20 centimeters, especially at the summit. But snow levels are dramatically rising as we really tap into the source of this subtropical atmospheric river. So expect much warmer air for Friday. As far as remaining rainfall totals, I think we're only about halfway through. So for parts of the south coast, that's another 40 to 60 millimeters. The bullseye with this one is actually south of the border. Washington is getting this as an atmospheric river scale 3 on the 1 to 5 scale, whereas it's more like a strong 2, a strong 1, low 2 on our end. The snow is going to continue to be a story, though, until we begin to see that switch over. But here's Friday evening. We don't get it clearing out until Saturday and Sunday, and then we get a break between systems. But watch as I keep this going through Monday. Just notice this sinking air we start to get. That's the first modified Arctic air mass for the province. That means minus double-digit highs for places like Prince George and Quesnel next week, and for us in Metro Vancouver, those are overnight lows, getting down to -3, -4. Now, I will have to keep my eye on these sunny icons because this is a setup for fog. But until then, enjoy the breath that we'll get on Saturday, Michelle, between systems.
Okay, good to know. We're halfway there. We can hold on.
We can do it.
All right, thanks, Jo.
You're welcome.
And congratulations are in order tonight for our CBC colleagues across British Columbia who have taken home 3 Jack Webster Awards. Every year, the Websters honor excellence in journalism across the province. And this year, the winning stories from CBC covered everything from COVID-19's impact on intensive care units, to the family doctor shortage in Victoria, and how communities are recovering from extreme weather events. Congratulations to those journalists and to all our media colleagues. That is your late news for Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/bc. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Good night.